March 9, 1974. The Philippine jungle, Lubang Island. A Japanese soldier emerges from the dense forest. His uniform is tattered, held together with patches and plant fibers. His sword is rusted, but sharp. His rifle still works. He is 52 years old. He has been fighting World War II for 29 years. The war ended in 1945. He doesn't believe it, or he can't accept it. For almost 3 decades, Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda has been conducting guerrilla operations on this tiny island, raiding villages, burning rice stores, engaging in firefights with local police. Search parties have tried to find him. Loudspeakers have broadcast appeals for surrender. His family has left messages. The Japanese government has sent envoys. He thinks it's all enemy propaganda, all tricks to make him surrender. Until this day, March 9th, 1974, when his former commanding officer, now an old man, walks into the jungle and gives him one final order, the order that will end his war. This is the story of the last Japanese soldier to surrender, the man who fought World War II longer than anyone else, the soldier who couldn't come home. Welcome to Archive of Witnesses. Every witness deserves to be remembered, even the ones who fought a war that ended before most of us were born. Hiroo Onoda was born in 1922 in Wakayama, Japan, the son of a schoolteacher, a good student, quiet, disciplined. In 1942, at age 20, he's drafted into the Imperial Japanese Army. By 1944, he's selected for intelligence training at the Nakano School. The Nakano School doesn't train regular soldiers. It trains intelligence officers, guerrilla warfare specialists, men who operate behind enemy lines, men who never give up. They teach survival, covert operations, intelligence gathering, and above all, absolute loyalty to the emperor. The instructors drill one message into every student: never surrender, never disgrace yourself, never disgrace Japan. Death before dishonor. Fight until victory or death. There is no middle ground. Onoda absorbs these lessons completely. He becomes the model student, the perfect soldier. In December 1944, he receives his assignment, Lubang Island in the Philippines. A small island, barely 125 square miles, strategic location near Manila Bay. His orders are simple: conduct guerrilla operations, disrupt enemy supply lines, gather intelligence, and above all, never surrender. His commanding officer, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, gives him one final instruction before he leaves. You are absolutely forbidden to die by your own hand. It may take 3 years, it may take 5, but whatever happens will come back for you. Onoda salutes. He understands. He will wait. He will fight. However long it takes. He has no idea it will take 29 years. December 1944. Onoda arrives on Lubang Island with a small team. His mission: prepare the island for guerrilla warfare when the Americans invade. Lubang is beautiful. Tropical jungle, white beaches, small Filipino villages scattered across the interior. Onoda and his team begin their work. They scout locations, identify supply caches, map the terrain, prepare for the long fight ahead. But there's a problem. The Japanese garrison commander on the island doesn't want to fight. He knows the war is lost. He just wants to survive until it's over. He's appalled. This isn't discipline or honor. This is cowardice. But he's a junior officer. He can't override a garrison commander. All he can do is prepare his own small team for what's coming. February 1945. The Americans land. The garrison commander surrenders immediately. Hundreds of Japanese soldiers lay down their weapons. The island falls in days. But Onoda and 3 other soldiers retreat into the mountains, into the dense jungle interior where the Americans won't easily find them. Their war is just beginning. They have rifles, some ammunition, a few supplies, an absolute certainty that Japan will eventually win and come back for them. They settle into the jungle, build hidden camps, begin guerrilla warfare operations against American forces. Months pass. Then the rumors start. Japan has surrendered. The war is over. Onoda doesn't believe it. It's enemy propaganda, a trick to make loyal soldiers give up. The 4 men make a pact. They will never surrender. They will wait for Japan to return, no matter how long it takes. 1945 becomes 1946. The 4 soldiers live like ghosts in the jungle. They raid Filipino villages for food, rice, bananas, dried fish, always at night, always quick, never leaving traces. They avoid enemy patrols, move camps constantly, live by the guerrilla warfare tactics they were trained in. But doubt begins to creep in. The Americans aren't leaving. More Filipinos are returning to their villages. Life seems to be returning to normal. One of the soldiers, Yuichi Akatsu, can't take it anymore. In September 1949, 4 years after the war ended, he surrenders to Filipino forces. The remaining 3, Onoda, Corporal Shimara, and Private Kozuka, are devastated. They consider Akatsu a traitor, a disgrace. They go deeper into the jungle, more cautious, more isolated. The Philippine and Japanese governments begin search operations. They drop leaflets from planes, leaflets with official surrender orders, photos of Japan at peace. The 3 soldiers find the leaflets. They read them carefully. Enemy propaganda, Onoda says. Look at the quality of the paper. Look at the printing. This isn't official. This is fake. They burn the leaflets and continue their war. In 1950, they find newspapers left by search parties. Newspapers showing post-war Japan, the emperor still alive, Japan rebuilding. It must be fake. Elaborate American psychological warfare. The Americans are good at propaganda. Everyone knows that. The 3 soldiers become more determined. If the enemy is working this hard to trick them, it means Japan must be winning somewhere. They just need to hold out longer. Years pass. 1950, 1951, 1952. They're not soldiers anymore. They're survivors. Jungle ghosts. The local Filipinos call them the Japanese holdouts and live in fear of their raids.
Here's the uncomfortable truth. Onoda and his men aren't just hiding in the jungle. They're killing people. Filipino farmers working their fields, police officers on patrol, anyone they perceive as enemy collaborators. In their minds, they're conducting legitimate guerrilla warfare, disrupting enemy operations, gathering intelligence, following their orders. But to the Filipinos, they're murderers, terrorists, bandits who won't accept that the war is over. Over the years, Onoda's small group kills approximately 30 people, wounds dozens more, burns crops, destroys property. The Philippine government increases search efforts. Military units scour the jungle. Rewards are offered for information. But Onoda and his men are too good. They've been trained in evasion. They know every trail, every cave, every water source. And they're absolutely convinced they're doing their duty. October 19th, 1954. 9 years after the war ended. Private First Class Shimada is shot and killed by a Philippine Army search patrol. He's trying to gather coconuts when they spot him. Now there are two, Onoda and Kozuka. They bury Shimada in a secret location. They hold a small ceremony. They vowed to continue the mission. For Shimada, for Japan, for honor. The decades continue. 1960, 1965, 1970. Onoda is now in his 40s. Kozuka is getting old. Their uniforms are barely recognizable, held together with plant fibers and animal skins. The rifles still work, their training still holds, their determination never wavers. But the world has moved on completely. Japan is an economic powerhouse. The Philippines is independent. World War II is ancient history. Everyone has moved on, except two Japanese soldiers still fighting in the jungle. October 19th, 1972, exactly 18 years after Shimada died. Kozuka and Onoda are burning rice in a village storehouse. Standard guerrilla tactics. Deny the enemy resources. A Philippine army patrol spots them, opens fire. Kozuka is hit. He falls. Onoda drags him into the jungle, but Kozuka is dying. The bullet hit his chest. There's too much blood. Kozuka looks at Onoda. "Continue the mission," he says. Then he dies. For the first time in 28 years, Hiroo Onoda is alone. He's 50 years old. He's been at war since he was 22. The only life he knows is this jungle, this endless fight. He buries Kozuka next to Shimada, two graves in the Philippine jungle, his brothers in arms. And he continues, because that's what he was ordered to do. Continue until Japan comes back. The death of Kozuka makes international news. The world is shocked. Japanese soldiers are still fighting in the Philippines? In 1972? The Japanese government launches a massive search operation. Onoda's family pleads through loudspeakers. "Hiroo, the war is over. Please come home. Your parents are waiting." He hears it. He recognizes his brother's voice. But it can't be real. The enemy can fake voices now. Technology has advanced. It's another trick. A sophisticated one, but still a trick. He goes deeper into the jungle. More careful, more alone than ever. But something has changed. For the first time, doubt enters his mind. Not about his mission, but about whether he'll live to see it through. He's alone. He's aging. His equipment is failing. How much longer can he continue? February 1974, Japan. A young man named Norio Suzuki makes an unusual decision. He's 24 years old, a college dropout, an adventurer. He tells his friends, "I'm going to find Lieutenant Onoda, a panda, and the abominable snowman." In that order. Everyone thinks he's joking. He's not. Suzuki has read about Onoda, the last Japanese soldier still fighting in the Philippines. The man who won't surrender. It's become a legend. Some people think Onoda is dead. Others think he never existed. But Suzuki believes he's real, and he's going to find him. He flies to the Philippines, takes a boat to Lubang Island, walks into the jungle with a backpack and a camera. No weapons, no military training, just curiosity and determination. The locals think he's crazy. "The holdout will kill you," they warn. He's killed many people. Suzuki doesn't care. He camps in the jungle, leaves signs that he's Japanese, that he wants to talk. February 20th, 1974. After days in the jungle, Suzuki's sleeping in his tent when he hears a voice. He's in his tent. "Who are you?" Suzuki opens his eyes. A man is standing over him. Tattered uniform, old rifle, piercing eyes. Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda. Suzuki sits up slowly. I'm Japanese, he says. I came to find you. Onoda doesn't lower his rifle. Why? Because you're famous in Japan. Because everyone wants to know if you're real. Because I wanted to meet you. They talk. For hours. Suzuki tells Onoda about modern Japan. The Beatles. The Olympics. Economic growth. Peace. Onoda listens, but he doesn't believe it. This young man seems sincere, but he could be brainwashed. Or an actor. The enemy is clever. Finally, Onoda says, I will only surrender to my commanding officer. Major Taniguchi must come here and relieve me of my duties. That is the only way. Suzuki nods. I'll make it happen. They take photos together. Suzuki with his camera, Onoda in his tattered uniform. Proof that he exists. Then Onoda disappears back into the jungle. Suzuki returns to Japan with the photos. The media explodes. Onoda is alive. He's real. And he's willing to surrender. But there's a problem. Major Taniguchi, Onoda's commanding officer, is hard to find. After the war, Taniguchi became a bookseller. He lived a quiet life. He's now an old man, nearly 70 years old. When the government contacts him, he's stunned. Onoda is still there? Still following orders I gave him 30 years ago? The Japanese government asked him to go to the Philippines, to officially relieve Onoda of his duties. Taniguchi agrees, but he's conflicted. He gave those orders in 1944. He never imagined Onoda would follow them for 30 years. All those deaths, all that suffering because of orders he gave when he was young. March 9th, 1974. Major Taniguchi, now in civilian clothes, walks into the jungle of Lubang Island. Philippine officials and Japanese government representatives follow at a distance. He calls out, Lieutenant Onoda, this is Major Taniguchi. I have come to relieve you of your duties. Onoda emerges from the jungle. He sees his former commander, now old, now gray. Onoda snaps to attention, salutes perfectly despite his ragged uniform. Taniguchi returns the salute, tears in his eyes. Lieutenant Onoda, he says formally, I hereby relieve you of all military duties. The war is over. You have fought with honor. You may now return home. Onoda bows deeply. Yes, sir. After 29 years, 3 months, and 24 days of war, Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda's mission is finally complete.
March 10th, 1974. The next day. Onoda formally surrenders to Philippine authorities. The ceremony is broadcast worldwide. He marches out of the jungle in his tattered uniform, his sword still at his side, his rifle maintained and functional despite 30 years in the jungle. He refuses to surrender to Filipinos, only to Japanese authorities. Even now he maintains his dignity, his military bearing. Thousands of Filipinos watch, some with anger. This man killed their relatives, terrorized their villages for decades. Others with respect. This soldier never gave up, never broke. Whatever else you say about him, he kept his word. Onoda unbuckles his sword. The blade is still sharp, still cared for. He maintained it every day for 29 years. He hands it to a Philippine general. The general receives it with both hands, with respect. Onoda then surrenders his rifle, his ammunition, his hand grenades, still functional after 3 decades. He has nothing else, no possessions, no money, just a uniform on his back and decades of memories. The Philippine government faces a dilemma.
Onoda has killed their citizens, destroyed property. By law, he should be prosecuted. But President Ferdinand Marcos makes a decision. He pardons Onoda completely. He was following orders, Marcos says. He was a soldier, doing his duty. The war is over. Let it end here. Onoda is free to go home. The next day, he boards a plane to Tokyo, his first time leaving Lubang Island since 1944. As the plane takes off, he looks down at the jungle, his home for 29 years, the place where he buried his friends, where he fought his endless war. He wonders what Japan will be like. The Japan he left in 1944 no longer exists. What has it become? March 12, 1974. Onoda lands in Tokyo. 10,000 people are waiting at the airport. Media from around the world, government officials, and his family. His parents are elderly now. They've aged 30 years. He barely recognizes them. His youngest brother, who was 7 when Onoda left, is now 37, a grown man with children of his own. Japan itself is completely unrecognizable. When Onoda left in 1944, Japan was at war, burning, desperate, traditional. Now it's 1974. Tokyo is a megacity. Neon lights, television, cars everywhere, Western fashion, modern buildings. The emperor is still alive, but he's no longer a god. He's a ceremonial figure. Onoda is overwhelmed. This isn't the Japan he fought for. This isn't the Japan he dreamed about in the jungle. He's treated as a hero. Interviews, book deals, speaking tours. But he's uncomfortable. People ask him questions he can't answer. Why didn't you surrender sooner? How could you keep fighting when the war was obviously over? Do you regret the people you killed? Onoda struggles to explain. In the jungle, everything was simple. Follow orders, survive, wait for Japan to return. Here, nothing is simple. Japan has moved on. The values he fought for seem outdated, naive even. Young people especially don't understand him. They've grown up in peace and prosperity. They can't comprehend fighting a war that ended before they were born. Onoda feels more alone in Tokyo than he ever felt in the jungle. At least in the jungle, he knew who he was. He was a soldier. He had a mission. He had purpose. Here he's a relic, a curiosity, a man out of time. After a few months, he can't take it anymore. The noise, the crowds, the questions, the modernity. He needs to escape. Within a year, Onoda leaves Japan again, this time permanently. He moves to Brazil, buys a ranch, becomes a cattle farmer. The wilderness appeals to him. Space, simplicity, no crowds, no questions. He marries a Japanese woman. They have a quiet life. He rarely speaks about the war. But he's not forgotten. In 1984, a Japanese teenager commits suicide. The boy's death shocks Japan. It raises questions about pressure, discipline, duty. Someone suggests Onoda might help. This man understands duty, understands pressure. Maybe he can help young people. Onoda returns to Japan. He starts a survival training camp for young people, teaching them wilderness skills, self-reliance, discipline. Not military training, life skills. How to survive, how to persevere, how to find purpose. It gives him purpose too, a way to use his experience for something positive. He becomes a different kind of hero, not the soldier who wouldn't surrender, but the man who survived and found a way forward. In his later years, Onoda returns to Lubang Island several times. He donates money to build a school there. An apology, perhaps, a way to give back to the place he terrorized for so long. He meets with families of people he killed. Some forgive him, some don't. He accepts both with dignity. In 1996, he returns to Lubang one final time. He's 74 years old now. He walks into the jungle, to the place where he buried Shimada and Kozuka. He brings flowers. He stands at their graves, his brothers who fought beside him, who died believing they were doing their duty. The war is over. We can rest now. Hiroo Onoda's story raises uncomfortable questions. Questions without easy answers. Is he a hero? A loyal soldier who never broke his oath? A man of unwavering dedication? Or is he a cautionary tale? A man so indoctrinated he couldn't see reality? Someone whose rigid loyalty caused unnecessary suffering? The people of Lubang have strong opinions. To them, he's not a hero. He's the man who killed their relatives, who terrorized their villages for 3 decades. The 30 people he killed had families, children who grew up without parents, wives who became widows. In Japan, opinion is divided. Older generations often admire his loyalty, his refusal to surrender, his dedication to duty. Younger generations see him differently. They question the values that kept him fighting a pointless war. They wonder if loyalty can go too far. Historians debate his impact, that he slowed down reconciliation between Japan and the Philippines. Did his story make it harder for Japan to move past the war? Or did his story serve as a warning about the cost of blind obedience, about the importance of questioning orders? Onoda himself struggled with these questions. In interviews, he defended his actions, but also expressed regret. He said, "I did my duty as I understood it, but knowing what I know now, would I do it differently? I don't know. I was a different man then, in a different world." He never fully apologized for the killings. He maintained they were acts of war, not murder. But he also acknowledged the pain he caused, the lives destroyed, the years wasted. The saddest thing, he once said, is that all that fighting, all that suffering, changed nothing. The war was already over. My mission was pointless, but I didn't know. And by the time I did, it was too late.
January 16th, 2014. Tokyo. Hiroo Onoda dies of pneumonia. He is 91 years old. He lived 69 years after World War II ended, longer than the war lasted by decades. His death makes international news. Obituaries around the world. The last soldier. The man who wouldn't surrender. The 29-year war. His funeral is attended by thousands. Japanese officials, Philippine diplomats, former students from his survival camp. His sword, the one he surrendered in 1974, is displayed, still sharp, still maintained. In the Philippines, the reaction is mixed. Some newspapers celebrate his death. The terrorist is finally gone. Others are more measured. A complicated man from a complicated time. But his story doesn't end with his death. It continues to fascinate. Books, documentaries, films. His memoir becomes required reading in some Japanese schools, not as a manual for blind obedience, but as a case study about loyalty, about reality, about the cost of never questioning your orders. Military academies around the world study his story. What went wrong? How could a soldier become so disconnected from reality? Psychologists analyze his case, the effects of isolation, the power of indoctrination, the human capacity to maintain beliefs against overwhelming evidence. But perhaps the most important legacy is the question his life poses. When does loyalty become fanaticism? When does duty become delusion? How do you know when it's time to let go? Onoda spent 29 years fighting a war that had ended, not because he was stupid, not because he was crazy, but because he was trained too well, because his loyalty was absolute, because he couldn't imagine that his orders might be wrong. His story is a warning about the dangers of unquestioning obedience, about the importance of thinking for yourself. But it's also a testament to human endurance, to survival, to the capacity to keep going even when everything seems hopeless. Hiroo Onoda was many things: soldier, survivor, killer, hero, villain, cautionary tale. He was all of these, and none of these.
He was human, complicated, like all of us. World War II ended on August 15, 1945. For most soldiers, the war was over. But for Hiroo Onoda, it lasted 29 more years. Not because he had to, but because he believed he had to. He could have surrendered in 1945, in 1950, in 1960, any time. But he didn't, because he gave his word, because he had orders, because he was trained to never give up. That dedication cost lives. Filipino farmers and police officers who died decades after the war ended. It cost Onoda his youth, his friends, nearly 3 decades of his life spent in an empty jungle fighting an empty war. When he finally came home, the Japan he fought for no longer existed. Maybe it never existed outside his imagination. But here's the thing. Onoda's story, as tragic as it is, shows us something important about human nature. We're capable of incredible endurance, of surviving impossible conditions, of maintaining hope against all evidence. Onoda survived in that jungle for 29 years, not with modern equipment, not with support, just training, determination, and unbreakable belief. That's remarkable, even if the belief was wrong. His story reminds us that loyalty is powerful, but it needs to be balanced with judgment. That duty is important, but it needs to be tempered with humanity. And that sometimes the hardest thing to do isn't to keep fighting, it's to know when to stop. This is why Archive of Witnesses exists, to preserve these complicated stories, the ones that don't have clear heroes and villains, the ones that make us think. Hiroo Onoda fought World War II longer than anyone else, not because he was braver, but because he couldn't see that it was over. If this story moved you, subscribe to Archive of Witnesses. We bring you untold stories from World War II, Cold War espionage, and ancient warriors. The complicated accounts, the uncomfortable truths, the human stories behind the history. Hit the notification bell, and in the comments tell us what you think. Was Onoda a hero or a victim of his own training? When does loyalty go too far? Share this story, because Hiroo Onoda's 29-year war deserves to be remembered. Not celebrated, not condemned, but remembered. Until next time, remember this: history is written by those brave enough to live it, and sometimes by those who couldn't accept it was over. This is Archive of Witnesses.